You are listening to the ATM Marketplace podcast. Burroughs specializes in OEM agnostic maintenance services to offer customers a consultative partner and a business model that protects our customers' investment, which prolongs the life and availability of equipment through a nationwide technician base. Burroughs offers maintenance services, technical support help desk, project management, managed services, repair and refurbishment, and a certified equipment solution. To learn more about these solutions, visit www.burroughs.com. BURROUGHS.com.
So, hello, this is Amy Castor. I am the editor of ATM Marketplace, and just so you know, I'm the new editor of ATM Marketplace. I've been here for about 3 months, and this is my first podcast. So today we are going to be talking a little bit about Burroughs. Burroughs is a managed services company. So according to their website, they are the largest independent service organization for ATMs and cash automation in North America. And Burroughs specializes in providing maintenance services to clients in the financial and retail industries. So we'll be learning a little bit more about Burroughs today, and we've been talking to Adam Hobelmann. He's the Senior VP of Sales and Marketing. So stay tuned, and after this brief message, we'll be right back and speaking directly to Adam.
Do you find that managing your fleet of cash automation equipment is complex, time-consuming, and expensive? Managing your fleet requires a robust system of tracking, takes time away from your core business, and costs money for your resources to manage. Burroughs Managed Services offering can improve your ATM department efficiency by removing monitoring responsibilities from the ATM department so that they can concentrate on more customer-focused activities. Our remote diagnostics improve uptime and resolve time, gives real-time access on the go, and has flexible offerings across any make and model of equipment. Our customers find value in the flexible offerings, choosing only what they need. To learn more about Burroughs Managed Services, email info@burroughs.com, info@burroughs.com.
So welcome back. We're going to go ahead and talk to Adam Hobelmann, who's the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Burroughs, a company that offers managed services to ATMs. Hi, Adam.
Morning, Amy. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Oh, just fine. Thank you.
Okay. So I got some questions for you, Adam. Can you just tell us a little bit, maybe a quick introduction about Burroughs and what you do there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I run sales and marketing over here at Burroughs. I'm Senior Vice President. I've been here for about 4 years. And Burroughs is one of the largest independent providers of maintenance services, managed services, and product and hardware development in the ATM industry. We also handle a number of retail customers in the recycling areas, as well as intelligent safes. So we've got about 600 field technicians in our service organization across the U.S. We are a coast-to-coast company, and we've been in business for over 100 years. So there's been a lot of different transition at Burroughs over the years, but these days we're solely focused on service, maintenance, and the electromechanical and cash automation business.
Okay, so one thing I'm really interested in is this whole concept of managed services. Maybe you could tell me a little bit about the history of that. Like why? Like, are your customers mostly banks or financial institutions? Who are you servicing?
I think managed services kind of spans both retail and financial, but I think, when we talk about managed services, we think about banks and credit unions. And yes, a lot of our customers are on the financial side. We also service a lot of independent organizations that are not banks or credit unions, but do run ATM fleets for larger retail establishments. So it's really a good mix, Amy. The kind of the genesis of managed services goes back a few decades. Really when ATM started to become software capable is when you started to see a need for some type of remote interaction with the ATM. So if you think about it, when you have anything that's software based, it's going to require maintenance. It's going to require patching, just even your home PC, requires security updates these days. So that's really when it started. We've seen a lot of different things over the past couple of decades with managed services. And I would say this, it's kind of become less of a novelty or a nice to have and more of a need to have within your ATM fleet, especially with all of the cyber attacks that you hear about all the time and just the endless amount of security threats, around computers and ATMs.
Why would a bank want to hire a third party to do all this for them? Why would they just not have what they needed in-house to manage their ATMs?
Well, some of them do, but I think the answer to your question is complexity. So the amount of things that have to happen at an ATM has grown over the years to the point where a lot of institutions, they just don't have the staff or they don't have the expertise to be able to do this themselves. If you just think about things like PCI compliance, where you have a certain amount of things that have to be done monthly and quarterly at the ATM, Windows patch management, security detection, all these things have just grown and grown to the point where, a lot of institutions have kind of thrown up their hands looking for a solution. And that's where we come in, or some of our other partners in the industry would come in to kind of help them, because we do this every day. We are the subject matter experts. If you look at some of the bigger banks, they kind of handle this themselves. Smaller credit unions and regional financial institutions are really hungry for a solution right now.
What sort of things do you get the calls for the most? What are banks outsourcing the most these days? Is it just cash replenishment, or is it a security thing? Like, what are you getting the most demand for right now?
I mean, the answer is pretty much everything. But I would say this: if you break managed services down into two different components, one would be what we'll call complete outsourcing. And that's the model where, yes, you're outsourcing as you said, the cash management, the processing of the ATM. You've got, our portion of it, which is security and maintenance. And then you've got a marketing aspect. You've got all these things that make up the ATM network. And some banks are saying, hey, we want you to take it all over, and we don't want to do anything with it. And we just want to understand that the ATM's up and it's available. So that's one definition of managed services, widely used in the industry. But the other definition is just really what we'll call kind of a remote set of services that we can provide at the ATM. And that is really what is kind of the necessary component here. So, and that is security. We get a lot of requests around security. And that could mean physical security, as far as like detecting things like skimming devices and, malware on the ATMs, you name it. And then it's also patch management. So to make sure that the security portion of Windows and the security portion of the ATM operating software is current, it's secure, and make sure that we're defending against cyber attacks. The other requests, that are a little bit less these days, but are still relevant, would be marketing. A lot of folks want to utilize, the nice LED screens that ATMs have these days and do active marketing to their customers. So those are really the three things: security, marketing, and compliance.
So security is kind of an interesting topic now. Like, what are the big security things you're seeing? Like, every time I go and do a Google on ATM, I read about skimming issues and everything. Is that the biggest thing?
Sure. Skimming is kind of been predominant the last 5+ years in the industry. So for those who don't really understand what skimming is, it's kind of a multi-threat at the ATM. So really, someone will come on and put a device over the card reader that actually captures the customer's information off of that card. That, with utilization of trying to capture their PIN number, will give the criminal every piece of information they need to access your account. So that's been a very, very popular, predominant one for a few years. There's another security threat out there called jackpotting of the ATM, which is really just tunneling into the ATM either virtually or physically and defeating the software on the ATM and forcing it to just dispense cash. That's got a low success rate out there, and it's been widely kind of stomped out, but still a threat. But I think the biggest threat we're facing right now are just cyber attacks on the ATM virtually. And that could just mean taking down the ATM network wholly, or taking down a single ATM. And that's what really a lot of banks and credit unions and all the financial institutions are really worried about, is that, is some hacker going to be able to get onto the ATM network, either at the site or virtually, and take the ATM out of commission or take our whole network down. And we're seeing some of that out there. As long as the software on the ATM is kept in a good state and is patched regularly, and the security software is up to date, you don't see a whole lot of that. But if you let it get too far out of compliance, you could be in real trouble.
So talking about compliance, Adam, I heard a rumor or somebody told me that a lot of the FIs right now haven't even started their transition to Windows 10. Is this true? I mean, are you seeing that?
Yeah, there's some early adopters out there that are starting these projects, but yes, they are behind. And a lot of that's kind of due to some of the things that are going on with the OEMs. The manufacturers of the equipment, they haven't really been ready with their piece of the software yet that will handle Windows 10. There's also some upgrades that have to happen at the ATM sites before that software can be installed. But yeah, you're correct. The ATM industry as a whole is kind of behind the trend here, and it's going to be a little bit of a race later on this year and next year to get everyone upgraded to Windows 10. Once that happens, that's going to open up a whole new, set of things that have to be done at the ATM from a PCI compliance standpoint. But eventually, it will make the ATMs more secure. It will add some feature functions that they don't have right now. So it's a good thing for the industry. But yes, it's going to take a while to get everybody there.
So you think that well they have to be up and running by what is it, mid January?
Yeah, and if you think about, a 500,000 ATMs out there or more, that's a tall order to get that many upgraded and installed, and everything, tweaked out before that date. Now, there will be probably some, folks that get extensions and things like that. They may move the date, as we've seen in the past with Windows 7 and a few other mandates. But yeah, it's a mad dash right now.
So it's going to be a busy December and January for you, huh?
Certainly.
Adam, tell me, who are your biggest customers?
So biggest customers would be what we'll call tier 1, tier 2 financial institutions. And for us, we've also got some bigger names out there on the retail side. So, BMO Harris, which is a larger bank in the north, is one of our marquee customers. We do business with the likes of Walmart out there through a company called Revolution. We have U.S. Bank as a partner. We've got a lot of names that you would recognize, but really the base of our customers is made up of about 800 smaller institutions that really rely on us for our expertise and consulting abilities here. What else? When I say vendor agnostic, what that means is, we're not tied to a manufacturer. So when we give recommendations, we're really trying to be as independent as we can. We service all makes and models out there of ATMs and recycling equipment. But really, we're kind of a trusted consultant in the industry to give, an independent view of each type of equipment, whether that be Diebold or NCR or Triton or you name it. We're able to provide that for the customer.
So you've been with the company, you said, for 4 years now?
Yeah, I've been with Burroughs for 4 years. Prior to that, I was with a well-known independent ATM deployer, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier, is as a alternate to what some of the banks and the credit unions have. And then also prior to that, I was with an OEM for about 15 years, Diebold. So really, I've got to see managed services kind of grow up in the industry over the last 25 years. And it's been interesting, when it first came out, nobody really understood, kind of the value of this in the future, and things like cyber attacks, they just didn't exist 20, 25 years ago. So things have moved kind of from, this really cool set of software tools that, a bank or credit union may want to utilize now to something that is necessary. And whether you do it yourself or you have someone do it for you, is absolutely needed at the ATM. But there's 4 or 5 different tools within that suite that everyone probably is interested in and would want to know about.
Sure. Well, tell us, what are they?
So one of the biggest things and it may not sound, that exciting, is remote resets. So the ability for us to tunnel into an ATM and remotely reset it. So what does that gain, you ask? Is that instead of the ATM being down and not having any idea what it is, if we're able to go and remotely reset that ATM, a lot of times it'll solve a problem. It's kind of like unplugging and replugging in your computer. Sometimes it'll fix a problem, and that's going to save not only time, but it's going to save cost in the fact that we don't have to roll a technician who's highly paid, highly qualified, in a van, and we don't have to put that mileage out there. So it's really a time and a cost savings. And then the other one, as we've been talking about and kind of focused on, is patch management. To be able to remotely manage this service and patch the ATM and make sure everything's compliant remotely, again, another cost savings. We used to call it in the industry sneakerware, and that was where you would take the software physically out there with a technician and walk it to the ATM and install it. So you can imagine the costs that are associated with that, especially if you've got a large fleet. Remotely being able to deliver that is huge. Being able to diagnose the ATM remotely as well, collect that data, be able to take that data, present it to the customer and say, hey, Mr. Customer, you've done 100,000 transactions on this ATM over the past 6 months. We expect component failure in these places. In the next 6 months, you may want to think about replacing. You may want to think about upgrading some of the components now. And that just leads to availability. You're going to have higher uptime at the ATM. You're not going to have the ATM broken because of something that you've already replaced. So, those are kind of the main things with remote managed services. The marketing aspect of it is pretty cool if you're trying to, launch campaigns at the ATM, trying to get your customers, to understand what your new CD rates are going to be. If you've got a new kids savings program, something like that, all of that can be marketed at the ATM, and you can change that marketing message in that cadence anytime you want remotely, versus, again, having to walk out there and load a disc and change the screen. So it really gives a very uniform marketing ability to the ATM fleet. And that's something that, some people have taken advantage of, but widely it's still kind of underutilized in the industry. So those are kind of the main components, Amy, of managed services. There's a lot of other things that come with it, but I think those are the 4 or 5 things that customers would be most interested in.
And right now you're just staying busy mainly with compliance and Windows 10, right?
Yeah, that's really the driver right now. Everybody is calling on that, and we're, I don't want to say that, we're at capacity, because we can certainly, work out, we can always have more and more going on and scale up. But right now the schedules are getting tight. Hardware is being purchased to do upgrades, software as well. It's really an exciting time in the industry, but it's also a little bit stressful.
Okay. Well, Adam, thanks so much for coming on today. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me on, and I appreciate the time.
Okay.